very intentional about the tools that I use for both face-to-face and online. Because of course, obviously online you're probably going to use a few more tools that not only help students interact, but also to manage the content, because that's really the strength of a learning management system, the ability to manage. It isn't the ability to help collaborate. That's better in face-to-face, but for managing, it works really well. So for my face-to-face, I do the bring your own device, BYOD. And so sometimes what I do is I kind of do a little bit of a blended where I have my students do the initial discussion in class, or not just initial discussion so much as initial brainstorming, because it's not really discussions. It's more of a, this is your final task, let's get started figuring it out, how you're going to build it. And so once they do that, then I sometimes ask them to post on an online discussion forum using their device their initial thoughts on that. And that way they're all in the same room, they're able to kind of interact with it, and then when they leave the classroom, they can continue the discussion on the board because they've already had this kind of event face-to-face that they've managed to kind of lay the foundation for that. So the BYOD is really the main one in there, but really it's really a matter of, are they there and present? For the online component of a hybrid class, I leverage the tools that allow me to manage students in different ways. The one that I use a lot is the groups function, and for different things. I use it for sign-up sheets, especially if I'm going to divide content. Like if I'm going to say groups of students, you're going to take care of this content, you're going to take care of this one and this one. And you're also going to, I also use it for discussion boards that are set up for different groups. Like sometimes I do smaller groups, especially feedback forums. Like feedback forums are really, really handy online. And I use the group function to be able to tell them. So that way they don't have to give feedback to like 15, 20, 30 students. They're giving feedback within smaller clusters of groups. And so I do that to do adaptive releases as well. And so those are the kinds of tools I use for in Blackboard. But I also use tools outside of Blackboard, because I've noticed that, especially for our younger students, who were basically born in social media and other tools, I'm starting to leverage social media a little bit more, especially if I want them to think more intentionally about the world that they're going into, about what kind of impact they can make with their words and with their opinions. And so I've started using Google+. I've started giving them choices in certain, because I don't personally have social media accounts for everything, just for Google+. But I don't necessarily limit them to not using them. The only adjustment I make to that is if they're going to use Facebook, for instance, which I don't have an account for, I tell them to get me screen captures of their interactions. And so that's kind of an adjustment that I do for them in that case. But I've noticed that they take to social media a lot more, particularly the younger ones, students like undergraduates. The graduates still struggle a little bit with that one. But for the undergraduates, the social media, they take to it. And if you give them an intentional purpose for it, they work really well within those parameters. Whether they have other social reasons for using it, it doesn't come into play here at all. But that's another one. I've also used, depending on the course, I've used games like World of Warcraft, depending on the topic. I've also used Second Life if I need immersive simulations. I've done simulations with students so that I put them in Second Life, because it allows them to really kind of immerse in the situation.
With the clickers, like with anything else, you've got to plan out your questions in advance, so you know what you're asking them and you know why you're asking it. So there are times when I'll just put something in that's just like, whoa, anybody getting tired yet? And just give them silly answers, just so that we can take a second, take a break, especially in classes that are 75 minutes of lecture. That's a lot to not have a little brain break somewhere in there. But as far as like them getting excited when everybody in the class gets an answer right, that was just really organic the first time it happened. I was surprised by it. And I thought, oh, that's probably just this class, but it doesn't seem to be. And now I find that when 100 comes up, I'm excited. So probably they're feeding off of that now, because I'm like, yes, 100! And of course they're excited too. When you're excited, they'll be excited too. But as far as kind of that preparation for the students, you have to give them enough time at the beginning of the semester to get the clicker and get it registered, and now they have the license. That's new, to get the license set up. And before you do any of that, before you put it in your syllabus, you have to give yourself time to get a packet from Turning Technologies, get the clicker, get the receiver, set it up, see how it works, see what happens when you push the buttons. There are a lot of different clickers on campus now, all from Turning Technologies. So some of those clickers they're going to come into your classroom with are going to be 10 or 11 years old, and of course they don't want to get a new clicker. They want to use the one that's 10 or 11 years old. So you have to decide in advance which ones are you going to allow them to bring in, and you have to make that clear on your syllabus, like this one is acceptable and these are not. For me, because I've been using them so long, like I know how to use all of them. I don't care which one they bring, but if I were just starting, I would certainly not want to learn 7 different clickers to figure out how they all work, because they do all work a little bit differently than each other. Don't be afraid to ask a colleague who uses them and ask them how to set up, like if you're going to use it for an exam, ask them how to set up the key. If you're going to use it in class as a PowerPoint, as part of your PowerPoint presentations, ask them things like, how do you get that to go into my Blackboard gradebook and things like that. I would say just be careful to not, again, don't overwhelm yourself. Don't feel like you have to start with everything at once. You can work things in as you go, and then find what works for you. If it works for you, do it. If it doesn't work for you, don't do it. It's, your students aren't going to be comfortable with it if you're not comfortable with it.
Now, the other thing that I did try one semester is trying to set up a portfolio system in Blackboard. And I think it's important to have portfolio, especially in programs where maybe 2 or 3 classes form a sometime program, or maybe a minor or something like that. But the portfolio was a little bit more difficult to set up, and there's a lot of upfront explaining to students what they are, what's the purpose of this, how's it going to help you, what do you accept, what's the mechanics behind it, the technology behind it. And it's a little bit more clunky than it should be. It's definitely worth a try. Just setting it up maybe very simple to begin, maybe the first semester, maybe just a couple of activities, and then as faculty members, as we learn how to use the tool, maybe incorporate a few more the following semester and just keep trying.
Sometimes I use, there are times that I've used Collaborate within the classroom, so during the face-to-face. Sometimes for distant students who for one reason or another have not been able to be in class. I have used Collaborate also to do recording of the classroom or of my class sessions, so that way those videos are online. I have not used the Tegrity screen capture because very often what I've used instead is the Collaborate. So I've actually recorded class sessions. So that those things are available then for students to be able to take a look at online. And I've mostly used that, I'm trying to think, I've used the Collaborate and the recording of the Collaborate sessions or the Collaborate classrooms at the graduate level, although I have done it at a couple of undergraduate levels when I've had distant students. Within the online environment, obviously Collaborate as well. Because I've had those videos available. And then obviously the technology that I've used there is much of what Blackboard allows. And so I've been able to use YouTube and outside websites. I've been able to actually load up videos within, create some of those. And so I've tried to explore a lot of those things. I sometimes use the whiteboard if I'm doing a Collaborate session, which is helpful because then that kind of thing is recorded. PowerPoints with audio. I've also, I'm trying to think, I've also, well, no, that's pretty much it. So a lot of that kind of thing. So I haven't really, the wiki, definitely the blogs within. I use the discussion a lot, the journals. Like I said, the whiteboard sometimes.